Welcome to the Career Rockstars podcast.
Hello, listeners. I'm your host, Dr. Renuka Ayri. Welcome to this episode of the Career Rockstars podcast, sponsored by Unique You Careers, Belgium. At Unique You Careers, our vision is to create a space where every client can explore their career possibilities. We support professionals to achieve their career aspirations, empowering them to be more, to lead more, and to live more, to become a career rock star, always ready for their next career move. My guest today is Renuka Ayre, a versatile, certified, multilingual global project manager with extensive international experience. As a freelancer today, she helps organizations to achieve their goals by leading their projects to success. Renuka, she believes in continuous learning and she holds a PMP certification. But more importantly, she puts her knowledge and experience to use. She's so passionate about project management that she's been an active volunteer to the PMI, the Project Management Institute, which I'm sure she will tell us more about, the Belgium chapter of the PMI since 2010, if I got it right. She has a commitment to support others on their project management journeys. Renuka, interestingly, is a graduate of the Delhi University, and she moved to Belgium in 1984. And since then, she has held various roles at the European Commission, Hewlett-Packard, and now at Tractabel. Renuka has had some steep turns in her career, she told me, which I can't wait to hear about and for you listeners to learn from. So let's find out what makes Renuka a career rock star. Join me in welcoming Renuka Ayri to the Career Rockstars podcast. Welcome, Renuka.
Thank you so much, Alicia, for this wonderful introduction. I am really honored to be in this podcast for you. And I hope that my experience will be useful for other people who want to progress in their career.
Super, that's why we're here. Great. Renuka, I really believe we met for the first time, I think, at the PMI event here in Brussels. I think it was 3 years ago.
Right.
And what really struck me is I still remember your ease and your grace and your confidence at that event. And I believe there's so much people out there can learn from you. What if we started by you first sharing with us how you first got into project management?
Well, I would just say that I believe I always had the skills as a project manager. When I started my career, I mean, this word project management did not exist at that time. I started my career in a travel agency where I actually did, I think, the whole management of the tour end to end, starting from making the itinerary to making the bookings, organizing the trips, and finally receiving the guests, traveling with the guests. Mm-hmm. So it was, in fact, every single tour was a project in itself, which I handled end to end. And I was really good at it. So my organizational skills were my strength. And when I was working as a secretary in Hewlett-Packard, I started to get more and more interested in when people were talking about this term project, always project, like everything was a project. And I said, but this is what I did all my life. So why am I a secretary and not a project manager?
You were already doing the work without knowing what it was called.
Yeah, without paying for it, honestly. So and then also, I started to learn more and more about it. What is really project management? And then realized that the market is really moving towards project management, that the secretarial jobs were just going to disappear. And if I want to survive, I have to make a shift, and I have to put myself in the right place. And luckily, I had a manager who believed in me and who supported me and helped me with giving me more and more responsibilities and allowed me to go for certification. And I followed it, and I that was my goal. And then I said, I have to do it, and I did it,
And we all know it's not easy to get that certification, but we'll talk about that a bit later. So thanks for sharing that. I mean, it's already impactful, that we take our skills for granted sometimes, and we don't realize our own strengths and how we can use them in our career to advance in our career. I want to step back a bit to when you moved to Belgium as an expat. And first of all, how was that move for you? And we're talking careers here. So of course, there's a cultural and a family and all of this. But overall, how was that move for you?
Okay, wasn't an easy move. It was a decision. Just to give you a little background, as you said, I came from India, and my career actually started in India. And it started as a lecturer. My first job was a teaching job, lecturer, which I had immediately after I finished my studies in tourism. But that was not what I had wanted. I wanted to be in the active field of tourism, but it just happened, I would say by chance, that I was offered a job right on my final day of the exam by the principal of the institute where I was studying, or university. And I couldn't say no. And I went there and I got selected. I was not the only candidate though, but okay, I got selected. I accepted it. But after 6 months, I said, no, this is not what I want to do. I really wanted to be very active in the field. And I went back to the agency where I did my internship, and they had actually offered me a job even at that time when I was doing internship, which I had refused because I said I want to finish my studies. So they were very happy to take me back, and I started, and that was my dream job, right? I loved my job. As I said, I did end-to-end tour management. I traveled with the important delegations. I stayed in the best hotels, and the best part was that when I came back from the tours, they gave me compensatory holidays because I was 2 weeks traveling. So I really felt they were paying me for being on holidays, But we can't underestimate it, because I did work very hard, in the sense that it was not a 9-to-5 job, right? I worked hard, but I loved it. I never felt I was working because I enjoyed everything that I did. And I was really at the peak of my career. I was I would say, the right place at the right time, because tourism was a booming industry in the 80s, in the mid 80s. It was really the booming industry, and India was doing everything to get the best part of it. And I think I got into the right place at the right time. That's what I can say. And I developed the right skills, because certain things I think I had naturally, an outgoing personality, multilingualism, starting from there, I was always multilingual, but I had also learned Russian and German. So with my 3 Indian and 3 foreign languages, I was really the right candidate for that job. And I was in demand. My skills were in demand in the market. And within my short careers of 2 years, the top people in the tourism industry in India had started to know me. So I was really at the peak of my career. I had open offers from other agencies telling me, come and join us. The Management Institute, where I was teaching as a lecturer, I was getting offer from other institutes to also continue. They were really offering me, what do you want? Come and do it, join us, So as I said, I was.
And how does that feel? How did that feel at that age?
Very
if I
good,
may.
very good. I was very young. I mean, coming just straight out of university and getting straight into the job without having to apply. Honestly, I was so lucky that I never applied for a job. I was just called from one place to another.
Mm-hmm. And the
And
transition to Belgium, that happened?
Yeah. So then, really at the peak of my career, I had the pressure from the family to get married, right? I mean, in India in those days, if you were in the mid-20s, you were already too old. So, and then, okay, I said, okay, fine, I'll get married. And it was a very conscious choice to leave India because I was so much in love with my job that I said, if I stay in India, I cannot leave this job. And this job is not for a married woman because I was traveling a lot. And in Indian culture in those days, people would not, have expected the wife to be always on travel and not looking after the family, because in my kind of job, I had no place for home. As a single woman, it was okay. My mother was there to take care of everything. So I came home whenever I left 5 in the morning. I came back sometime at midnight. Like I had no schedule, right?
So this was in the mid-80s, correct?
It was the mid-80s, right?
So when you moved, sorry, you're not finished. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, as I said, and then the family said, now you have to make your life, you have to get married. And I said, okay, if I have to give up my job, I have to leave the country, because it will be too difficult for me not to leave my job, because people will follow me. Because as I said, I was at a level where people were just offering me the jobs with the best conditions. So it's very tempting, to say no to such a glamorous job. So, well, okay, to cut this story short, it was an arranged marriage, but a very consciously chosen step to come to Belgium, because I spoke German, and I thought, a miscalculation, I thought that because it is one of the official language of Belgium, that I will make use of my German, that I will be able to re-establish myself very quickly with my experience, my languages and everything, which was a complete miscalculation. But okay, I decided to get married, and I arrived in Belgium. I left my country, my family, my friends, and my glamorous, flourishing job all in one go. And I came here from -20 straight to, no, from +20 straight into -20, yeah, just before Christmas, December.
40
one
degrees.
of the coldest winters of the year.
So it's not only the cultural shock, it was the weather shock.
Everything.
You were young, you're moving, you gave up your job. I mean, so many sacrifices you made, but you were married and you had your companion. And how did that impact your career then, that shift?
That's what I'm saying. It was, apart from being a cultural shock and a weather shock or whatever, the biggest shock for me is when I felt myself a completely useless person. So despite my 3 foreign languages, as English, French, and German, and 3 Indian languages, and my education and experience, I was completely useless because I didn't speak the local languages. So you can understand what a big change it was for me. And my husband said, look, and he had told me that already, well, before we married, when we met each other, he did say that you are in a very good position today as a manager where you are, and very well paid. But I'm afraid you will not be at that level when you go to Belgium. You may have to start as a typist, because unless you speak either French or Flemish, your choices are limited. And I didn't realize at that time that when I had read that the German was a third official language, I thought, okay, I still have German, and people, because it's a third official language, I should have opportunities. But I did not know Belgium at that time, that the German is only spoken in a tiny part of Belgium, in Brussels. You have to speak French.
And today you speak French and
I speak
Dutch,
French,
Flemish?
a bit of Flemish as well. I understand, but I have forgotten.
So how many languages? How many
yeah,
languages
but I forgot
do you
Russian
have?
and German so, because I never used it.
How many languages do you have now?
I still have 5, I would say. So 3 Indian languages and French and English, that's fluent. I can still understand, I would say, a bit of German and a bit of Flemish. It's not as good as it was. But Russian, sadly, I have forgotten. I still remember. I can still read and write. The script, I would say, I still remember, but I am no more fluent as I used to be.
Okay. So if I got it right, Renuka, you were in this, you just graduated, you were in this really high in demand job, totally independent young woman traveling the world on her job, coming back, getting holidays for compensation. And due to cultural circumstances in your home country, you chose to get married, and then you moved to Belgium with your husband. And today, the start of that new journey was where you had to go and start at the secretarial level. How did that feel for you?
To be honest, I would say I have no regrets, because I have learned that always, that was my upbringing, is that when you make choices, you weigh your pros and cons when you make your choices. And then if it's your decision, whichever direction you take, and you have that commitment that you made that decision, you can't blame anybody for that decision. And you do your best in the circumstances you are in. I think that upbringing of mine has helped me a lot in adapting to every situation. I think my biggest strength after organizational skills is adaptability. And that adaptability.
I see where you're coming from, but how can we translate this into a message, you know, for the younger graduates, shall we say,
right,
who put so much effort? Yeah.
Right. For me, I arrived in this country and I said, okay, there are opportunities. I have to see what is possible, right? You have to see the options around you. I knew my strengths. I knew my weaknesses. My weakness at that time was the local language. But the market in the trend here was, okay, I mean, there were travel agency, I could not go back. That is one job where you absolutely must speak the local languages. So that was clear to me that unless I speak fluently local languages, I cannot get there. And it will take me time to get to that level. What is immediately available to me is the typist job, but I didn't know typing. So you assess your skills. What are your skill gaps, right? I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, and then I know my skill gaps, and I had to learn typing, right? Luckily, my husband had an electric typewriter in those days, which he said, you can learn here, electric type with this, and maybe you will have some opportunity. And honestly speaking, it didn't take me too long. Within 3 months, I started to learn. I mean, I learned typing. I was doing that, and I had already started learning French. And within 3 months, I found a part-time job in a small office where I learned word processing. So I would say that was a small beginning, because those were the days when they were starting with the word processing and not only typing. And there was a job at DHL for English-speaking typist. I applied and I got it. And that was my beginning as a typist at DHL. But then, because I did my job with full commitment. I gave it 100%. I never let anybody feel, although I was told during the interview, don't you think you are overqualified for the job? And I told them, this is not my final job. This is a step into my career. But in the current situation, this is what I know I'm capable of doing. And from there, I'll take it forward. And I think they offered me the job, but within 6 months, they realized I was not just a typist. So I was the personal secretary to the general manager after 6 months. So that was already, I would say, a step forward.
Indeed, indeed. And so what you said earlier about, that, in career coaching, it's a step, that many people tend to skip. Really reflecting on what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. And this is not just assessments, really how you apply it and how you live it. And knowing also your values and the decisions that you take and how they impact in your life. But you are ready to take those decisions. That is so powerful. And I think it's a powerful message for our listeners, because it's so easy to, overlook what we are capable of. And sometimes we do have to, it's assistant to the general manager. For me, it's a high level position. It's an executive position. You're part of that, that team, the executive board, but sometimes people see it as a secretary. So I really admire how that quick trajectory that you took once you got here. So, and I would really like our listeners to think about their options and the possibilities. And as you said, you cannot blame anyone. Sometimes we can, but it doesn't get us anywhere.
No.
So, so I like that. Were there any other? You talked about steep turns in your career. Were there any others that you want to share quickly with the audience?
Yeah, that was a deep turn. Obviously, you fall from a managerial position to a typist position.
Okay, let's go the other way now. When
then I went on the other way. But I think at every step, I did make a conscious decision. Because when I became the secretary, I also, at that time, we had our children, right? So when you have small children, you have to balance your work life, right? You have to give time to your children, and in the office, they are not giving you the concession that because you are the mother of 2 children, that you don't have to deliver, right? And I'm talking of the days when there were no parental leave, paternal leave, I would say, sorry, the father didn't have the leave for that. Today you have some days which the father can take as well. But that was not the case during my time. There was no part-time working possibility for the women which are there today. So 30 years ago, things were not the same as they are now. So there are more and more flexibility in the world today. There was no home working at that time neither, which means my children had to go to crèche and I had to pick them up at a certain time. So being, as you have already said, as a personal assistant to the general manager was indeed a very hectic job for a company like DHL. It was a regional office. My manager was the manager of 70 countries, EMEA region. So you can understand, even if when I had to send one letter, it was to 70 countries at the same time, writing those addresses 70 times. Sending me faxes.
There are some other skills. There are some other skills hidden behind there, like attention to detail.
So anyway, so the thing is that you still had. It was an extremely hectic job. I will not deny that. That once I entered my office, there was no way that I could even get time for a cup of coffee. Sometimes people would put coffee on my desk and it will get cold because I was just dealing with the phones and things and everything. So a very hectic job, but as I said, no complaints. after I had my two children, I felt that I was not doing justice to my children, especially after the second child was born.
Yeah.
I could not cope with my workload and my personal load at home, because at night one child after the other would wake up, so if you don't sleep well and then you go to the work and you are not in the right spirits because you are tired. So I took a break at that time. I think there was a period that was a turn again. Although when I was leaving this job, I was a little bit afraid that I will never get a similar job, because I was very well paid. The office was just 2 kilometers from my home, so it was convenient. And my French, whatever I learned, I had lost, because at DHL, I never had to speak French. And if you don't practice the language, you lose that language.
Of course.
I left it, but then I was not too sure if I would get a similar job. But at that time, I just left it to the destiny, thinking, okay, today I need a break because my kids need me. Another conscious decision. You have to make choices in your life.
Yeah.
And that time I took that choice. But after 1 year, when my daughter, the younger one, she was 1 year old, our expenses, of course, with one income in Belgium, you know how it is. So my husband started to feel it's time that you go back to work, that we have to put the children now in the crèche. So we knew that. But again, I think I thought I would start as an interim. I didn't want to go as a full-time, thinking if I go back full-time as a job as DHL, it will be the same. So let me start smaller as interim. I may get less, but at least I'll be able to manage my home life, my private life.
Yeah. So things have improved, I would say, in Europe, in many countries, in terms of having also the paternal leave, in terms of the on top of maternal. But there are also many countries today where, what you might have gone through, many women are going through on a daily basis. And it is a challenge, but those conscious decisions and moving away from blame and knowing that you are taking a decision based on your quality of life is so important. And that's why I always say, when we talk about careers, it's to be more, lead more, but also to live more, to live that life that suits you at that point in time. Otherwise, you know what happens. We end up in burnout, right?
Indeed. That's what I say. There are times when you have to choose, and you cannot always choose, or I would say that sometimes your choices are driven by your circumstances. Sometimes you have a free choice, but sometimes your choices are really depending on the circumstances you are in. So you probably would take a different choice if those circumstances were not there. But at times, we all go through that. We all go through different situations, and these situations impact our life, impact our decisions. And the adaptability is indeed what helps you to go through those kind of situations. So anyway, I was very lucky that my first interim job that I got was at the European Commission. So
wow.
Again, God has been helping me.
So if I were to stop you there, so we talk about all this journey and that, it's a powerful story to share with the audience, not only for the women, but also, or the mothers, shall I say, but for anyone who is facing a challenge, to be able to reflect on where they are and take those decisions. Of course, financially, it may not be possible for everyone, but to be able to do that, to have someone to talk to be able to go through that process. So I want to take you back now to the project management part. So you came back and now you were at the European Commission. Tell us briefly what went on there and how that took you on your project management trajectory.
Right. So I joined European Commission still as a secretary, because it was not, I would say, as a project manager yet. But the big difference between DHL and European Commission was that I was paid more for working less. In those days, I don't know what European Commission is today, but in those days, I was doing 25% of the job I did at DHL. And I had higher salary because I was at the European Commission. I mean, I didn't stay interim. I started as interim, but then they offered me a full-time contract. And I got, because what I want to highlight here is that I have been successful in every job, whether I did it as a typist or a secretary or a travel agent or a lecturer. The reason I think I was successful is because I always gave it my 100%. I didn't think about my job title. I thought about what I have to deliver, and I delivered my best, giving it my full commitment. And I think that is why I never had a problem of finding a job. So I think that's one thing, that people are open. And I believe that anybody who does anything with 100% commitment will always be successful.
And what are you seeing in the market today? I mean, within your network, within your domain?
It was none of that came through network. I don't, okay, my very first job in India, of course, came through my director of the institute, because I was doing my dissertation with him. But he hadn't sent only me, he had sent 4 candidates. I was the lucky one to get selected. So yes, network, I could say that, because this job was not openly published. These people went to the universities, and I was just, this was a new course in the University of Delhi, which I had done my post-graduation. So I think that helped. But what helped, when I came to Belgium, there was no networking. I knew nobody, literally nobody. It was purely my CV that I was sending, and the interviews, the way I presented myself or answered the question in the interview. I believe my confidence showed during the interviews, and that people could trust me, so they offered me the job. And I have been always lucky that I hardly ever failed the interview, except as a freelancer after I left DHL a few times. But that was more a negotiation on the price.
Yes, so you use some powerful words there, like confidence in yourself. And that confidence, of course, comes from clarity on what you are about, your values, your strengths, your skills, and how you can bring value to the organization, I'm sure. But you use also another word, trust. You were able to build that trust with them, whoever they were interviewing you at the time. And this is something I try to instill when I do interview drills with some of my clients. Because just answering those questions alone, it's difficult to not to convince, but to persuade and to support the hiring team in trusting you and engaging you to come in and add value. So it's very difficult to do that. And once people get the hang of that, like you did, obviously, naturally, then you are able to really land those offers and move forward in your career. Of course, doing something that you like to do. I would like to take us now a bit about your volunteer work with the PMI. Of course, you're a qualified project manager today. I'm sure you had a lot of studying to do, projects to do, qualifications, and I know the PMP cycle. I never did it because I thought it was too much of a challenge for me. But we have a lot of project managers everywhere, as you say, there is project management. So tell me a bit about your commitment to the PMI Belgium chapter. I think you've been there more than 10 years. How does that work for you?
Yeah. Right. I think when you talk of networking, the only place where I started to network was PMI, because before that, my life was my office and my home, because in between I had no other time. With your 2 children and your full-time job, building a network outside of that is a little bit difficult because you don't have sufficient time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I did my PMP, as you know, that I had to study a lot. It's whatever certification you do, you have to do the theory, right? And it was at a time when my children were studying. I think my son was preparing for his graduation. My daughter was doing her final year of school. So we were all studying together at the same time.
One big happy family.
So it was like, okay, it was the ambiance, I would say, of studying. So that helps. But it's never easy when you are a mother. And I remember that I studied from 11 until 2 because I didn't have the time before, because you do your full-time job. I came home and then I had to do my household like every other woman. And after I finished everything else, I would start to study. So I had, my agenda, I had my limits that I have to do this exam. So obviously there was a planning involved. But luckily, I think I did get 1 week off from the office just before the exam. So my manager allowed me that as a training week, and I did that. So what we have to do as a project manager is like, okay, as I said, after I passed my exam, I thought I better join the club, the PMI Project Management Club, and see what it is. And there were many other, let's say, employees from Hewlett-Packard. And I think actually what I learned later was Hewlett-Packard was their biggest customer. So majority of the members from PMI Belgium chapter were from Hewlett-Packard, because Hewlett-Packard was so big. And
at the time,
because Hewlett-Packard encouraged the employees to be part of PMI, because at the organizational level, Hewlett-Packard followed the PMP processes. And because they followed the PMP processes, they asked their employees, or they encouraged their employees to be certified in PMP, and also to join the local chapters. And once I joined, I thought, okay, now that I have a little bit more time, the kids are big, independent, like a little bit bigger, but still at home. But at least once in a month, I can take some time for myself. It was really at that time when I started to take care of myself, I would say, started to think about myself, because until then, I was thinking of only the family. And once I started to come there, and as I said, you know me, that I have this extrovert personality like you. I'm not an introvert. I started to get involved very quickly as a volunteer. So I started with smaller roles, let's say the PM Fair where we met, but I think the first time I got involved was just helping during the PM Fair. And then I think 2-3 years later, I started to really take part of the PM Fair team, the core team, as a marketing and communication manager for them. So looked at 2 years, I think I did that. they had been asking me earlier to join the board, and I was a bit refusing, saying that no, board means commitment, and I don't have so much time with my full-time job. I'm better off on the other smaller roles where I know I can deliver. Because one bad habit I have is that I will never commit to anything if I am not comfortable that I will be able to deliver what is expected. So that something goes with me. I was not
as
committing.
you spoke about earlier, right? The
Yeah.
examples you gave earlier with the job.
Right.
So
And
if I stop you there, just to, because I want to get the message out from that powerful example you shared. So if people join these organizations and you are given your voluntary, work, it's your time, it's your effort, what drives you to stay there for so long and continue to give your support to such an organization?
I think it's your passion. Huh? If you don't like it, you will not do it. And you should not do it. I would say that. Don't do anything that you don't like to do, because listen to what you enjoy. For me, it's more, it's like passion, as I said. It's like my passion is project management. I never feel tired. I work long hours. Anybody who works with me can confirm that. But I like what I do. And that's why I don't feel tired. If I was doing something I didn't like, I will probably not feel the same. And for PMI, I felt that you reach a point where you want to give back to the society. And we all should actually, right? We are consumers, but we should also be giving back to something. And I thought, okay, this is my strength. So why not share that with other people? I mean, I probably cannot share so much. People help by donating their money because they have too much money. I don't have too much money. Okay, I can donate a little bit here and there, but
my time.
right?
Oh, that's beautiful. But sometimes we do have to be conscious of how much we're given, because when you give, you always receive. But if you don't take care of yourself, you can easily slip into that overgiven, coming from a good place, and that can backfire on you. So I like the way you put it, that it's really coming from a place of passion. And when we're doing something we're passionate about, we all know that it doesn't feel like work, right? So thanks for sharing that. Based on that, so you left a lot of nuggets there for the project managers, how they can give back. But what message would you give to, let's say, young aspiring project managers? So they're just in their first, they're not even PMP yet, they're starting off. What would you tell them?
I think the very first thing I would tell anybody is know thyself. If you don't know yourself, nobody else will know you, because you can know yourself the best. Huh? That's normal. And when I say know thyself, it means really know what are your strengths and weaknesses. Do that introspection. Because sometimes we have the talents, but we don't recognize those talents as strengths. And that's for me the first part. When people come out of the university and they want to build a career, whether it is project management or anything else, they really have to see what is it that they would like to do, what career they would like to choose, what is it that gives them pleasure. Because if you do anything that gives you pleasure, it will not tire you. But if you want to do something because you want to swim across the current, obviously you will be tired very soon. You will be demotivated and you will say, oh, where am I? And you will be complaining and whatever. But
well, there you go, Renuka, because then you can be my spokesperson, because anybody who goes to my website, they would see that the first phase of my coaching methodology, especially for younger fresh graduates is that, and I use the terminology from Socrates, Plato, wherever it came from, know thyself. Because when you know your career identity as such, all those elements that make up you, and we all know the Ikigai principle and so on, the Japanese way of living. If you know that, then things can change in the future, but where you are now,
Yeah.
it can be so much more pleasurable for you. And also that trust we spoke about with the interviewing team for any job you're applying for, that comes out more naturally when
Yeah.
you are fully aware of yourself. So that's a powerful message. Thanks for sharing
Indeed.
that.
I think for me, that's always the first thing somebody asks is it something that you want to do, or is it something you've just taken like that? But I think people should know what are their strengths and weaknesses. And once you know what are your strengths and weaknesses, it is easy to then identify, like if I say I want to be a project manager and that's what I decided, then you look at what are your skill gaps. What is it that you need to learn more to be there where you want to be?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
We always say, looking for a job is a project. Looking for a job is a project in itself, right?
I think even starting a career itself is a project, right? Because if you want to start a career and you don't know which direction you want to go, then you have to sit and think about what is it that you want to do in your life, what would please you, and then what skills you have which you can use, what skills you need to further improve. And once you have already done that analysis, all that you have to do is to just close that skill gap, have a plan for how am I going to close those skill gaps. And once you have all the required skills, I'm sure you can apply for the right job and you will be able to get that job. It is possible that you don't get at a high level, but never be afraid of starting at a smaller pace, step at a time. As I said, once you get an entry, my policy has always been, once I have my step inside, I will find my way to the other steps. The first step is
that's very powerful. I like that. And okay, so you've done a lot of personal and professional development over the years. Especially with all the different types of jobs you had. Of course, you had to learn new skills and so on. In terms of, the big word today, personal and professional development, which we've been doing all our lives, but now we have a name for it. What is a resource that was very powerful for you that you would like to share with our listeners? A book or something you came across?
Honestly speaking, I have not read many books. I have read few. But as I said, for me, the most powerful resource is you yourself. That's the first thing as a resource. If you really want to use it in that term, you are yourself the best resource. And you have to, see what is it that you want and go ahead with the confidence, go ahead with the power of adaptability, because accepting the change is important, because things around you will always change. There is no way you can stop it. But be ready to adapt it and be sure that you are looking towards the market trends. Because as I said, I was successful because whichever job I took, I first studied the market trend. When I decided to do tourism after having studied science all my life, I knew that this industry was going to boom, that I have to, step in that. And I really stepped in at the right time. And that is why I was successful.
Yeah, there is this. That's really, I probably interrupt you because I really want to say something powerful linked to what you're saying. And we have so many people who, especially again, the younger people, because they've studied something, they believe that they have to stay in that type of career for their entire, as far as they can see their vision. So you and I both know that it's not always the case. I also had an academic career, corporate career, and now a business has nothing to do with what I did in the beginning. So I didn't know actually that you were also in science. It really helps our listeners, again, coming back to adaptability, how we have to adapt with the trends and how it's okay to make those changes. Thanks
Right.
for sharing that.
Right. Because what in today's world, the reality is that the jobs will become obsolete. Yesterday's jobs are obsolete today. The typist job, the secretary job is obsolete today. How many secretarial jobs do you have in the market? Hardly any, right? The travel agency job is also dying. It's getting obsolete. Everything is online. Who goes to a travel agent today? So those jobs are obsolete today, and today's job will be obsolete tomorrow. So if you want to stay in business, you must look out. What are the opportunities? Proactively look out where the trend is going. Like artificial intelligence today is the trend, and you can.
So project managers are safe.
Yeah, project manager will still continue for a while.
So if we had to give some, if we had to give some advice, it would be project management today is a safe space.
It is still a big thing, project management, and I think the way things are going, they will still always need project management. The advantage with project management is that you are not tied to an industry. Although, again, I would say many people believe that, because when I came from Hewlett-Packard and I was applying for a job, people labeled me as IT project manager, because Hewlett-Packard is IT company. But I am not a technical IT person. I never did any IT project. I only did non-technical projects, more related to change management. But I was not able to convince people. They labeled me as IT. And I'm grateful to Sodexo, who gave me the first opportunity to work in a construction project for Johnson & Johnson. That was my first freelance contract. So you can see, I mean, adaptability again, I would highlight it here, because all my life, 20 years I spent in Hewlett-Packard, of which 15 years I did worldwide projects, right? Yeah. And none of those projects were IT projects as such. Of course, they were always related to IT. I was given a project on incident management, purely forecasting, a forecasting project for incident management. I did not know the ABC of forecasting. I did not know what is predictive analytics. But I never said no. I accepted it and I learned it. Because the first thing is, as I said, I put my step in, because the option is either you take a project, or then otherwise you are on the bench, and after that you may lose your job. So you don't want to lose your job, you want to stay in there. So you say, okay, yes, if you believe I can do it, then I can do it, right? So if somebody offers you a job, at least they probably have some thinking behind that you are the right person to do that.
Yes, even if indeed we never have all the skills. We never have all the skills.
No.
So from what I'm hearing, Renuka, the theme of our podcast here is career rock stars. So I'm gonna ask you, I have a fair idea why I believe you're a career rock star. But as we come to a close, I would like to ask you, what makes you, Renuka, a career rock star?
Right. I think you have seen that my career rock star is because the number of
in a nutshell,
the number of jobs I did makes me a career rock star, because wherever you put me, I will survive. Not only survive, I will come back giving you the best, and you will think that, oh, this is my core skill. And I think that makes me rock star, that after 20 years of projects in IT, I am delivering projects in real estate and space management. I had absolutely no experience in that, but I learned. So I'm a career rock star because I adapt very quickly to my new job, my new role.
So we have adaptability. We have the adaptability, and I picked up two other things: the passion,
indeed,
and taking up the opportunities that come in front of you. Yeah. So those are powerful qualities to have. You qualify as a career rock star. That's why you're here.
So much, Alicia. Thank you.
So as we close up, I'll just try to summarize a bit what we have discussed here today. Thank you so much for sharing all your stories and your strategies that you have used. So no doubt, Renuka, for our listeners, you shared with us an inspiring career path. I mean, all your journeys and so on. So I'm actually taking away a lot, and I have a lot of respect for everything that you've opened up and shared with us today. As you said, we all have ups and downs with sharp and sudden turns, as you say, in our career and life. And we can't really separate the two, can we? But being aware of what's happening and taking those actions and knowing and believing in yourself, and sometimes stepping down like you did, may all be necessary for us to fly again. And another message I got from you is that no matter what you study, you're not obliged to stick to it. And you can either work with a friend, family member. These days, we have a lot of career coaches, and work with someone who can help you to explore your possibilities and really help you to identify your core qualities and strengths. And that trust and that passion you spoke about. And also you spoke about what makes us happy. So you also mentioned the importance of continuous learning, especially in today's world, but not only for the certificate, right? It's all about how we apply that. And I personally believe that knowledge by itself is a waste if we don't put it to use. So I really thank you, Renuka, for being here. Thank you. So to all our rock stars out there, let's thank Renuka Ayri for sharing her career journey. Thank you, Renuka.
Thank you so much, Alicia, for having me. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. So remember, listeners, you are unique, your career is unique, and your lifestyle is unique, and that it's never too late or early to take control of your career, to become your own career rock star. I'm Dr. Alicia Ali, Europe's premier career coach and mentor. I thank you for listening, and remember to subscribe. Join us next time on the Career Rockstars podcast.
We'll enable you to be more, lead more, and to live more, to become a career rock star.